welcome to another edition of Regenerate, the Hearty podcast, looking at all things regenerative. So excited today. We have such a great lineup of guests. We are going to look at what is natural intelligence farming. I love that phrase. I've never heard it before, so I can't wait to chew on that one and deep dive into it. Miss Koska, welcome to this morning's podcast.
Oh, hello, Kelly Jones, another live. Well, hopefully it will be live. It's so great. I'm really excited. I've been following the Haggerty's journey since I was, started 15 years ago. I'm a big, huge Christine Jones fan. And I think I met Christine Jones. For those of you who don't know, she's Dr. Christine Jones is a soil scientist. And I started, hearing all about her with her amazing carbon website back in the day. And the Haggertys were front and centre on all the work that you guys have put together. So why don't we introduce the Haggertys right now to Di and Ian. Hello, welcome to our beautiful Regenerate podcast. We're so happy to have you on.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you so much for inviting us along. It's a real privilege, and really looking forward to our conversation this morning.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Great to be here.
And we also have Nakala from Nutrisoil. Hello, Nakala. How are you?
Hello, Helen. I'm well, thank you. Hello, everyone. Great to be back.
Love your background.
Yeah, I thought it was appropriate being Nutrisoil and being a worm liquid. We live and breathe worms.
Beautiful. So how would we like to start, Kel? What do you think?
Oh, I just want to dive deep into the story, how you guys met, how the Haggertys took off into this amazing wonderland that you've created, and Nakala, how that connection came about and how it all sort of rotates around the beautiful heartiness of worms.
Yeah. So
Nakala, yeah.
Okay, all right. So we kind of covered it a little bit, the whole Nutrisoil story and how it happened in our last podcast. But Graham, Darren and Rochelle's dad, started Nutrisoil way back when on the farm, and then it sort of just got bigger, and then Rochelle and Darren were involved in the business, and then Rochelle actually met Di at a event with Elaningham, and that's kind of how it all sort of started back in the early days of when you guys were starting to really go quite biological. Is that right, Di?
Yeah, I guess we started changing about 2001 when we heard Elaningham and Arden Anderson at a 4-day workshop in Perth. And then we started changing inputs and practices, I guess, at that point. And we started going down the line of compost teas, which was fairly scary in a broadacre sense, because we weren't too sure how quickly things would go off with the handling, getting it from the shed to the paddock and so forth. So went to Elaine's course in 2006, and that's where I sat beside Rochelle on the plane heading there. And we struck up a friendship, and we also met Rhonda Daly from WILAD. I'd met Rhonda on a previous plane, and yeah, the three of us stuck together, supporting each other through the 2-week course, and had a wonderful time. And yeah, so we've been able to, as a result of that, source the Nutrisoil product for the farm plus the WILAD compost. So it was, really fortuitous moment for our farm.
Can I ask you to tell us about your story? Like, were you originally both farmers? Were you from the land? How did you, what was your journey in terms of, your knowledge around, what your parents may have taught you or what you knew, and then, and sort of how did that happen? What was the light bulb thing for you?
I think, we're generational farmers, so we come from a long background of farming, but we both weren't fortunate enough to actually take on any of the family farms, so we actually had to start again. So I think probably one of the main instigations was we went north up into the West Kimberley, and we had a business up in West Kimberley, and we were very fortunate. We we dealt with a lot of Aboriginal communities up there. And I think through that journey up there, it was a completely different business. It was a BP franchise up there. And but we used to run that whole area right the way through to Clumbaroo, up through to Gibb River Road and those areas. So we met a lot of those traditional Aboriginal communities that we used to deal with business. And over that period of time, we really started to look at things differently. Spent a lot of time with those people, and they were great people, and a lot of the old original elders were there, and saw a different way of looking things, and it really started to tick that mind on.
And we also met Robin Treadwell, who was the inaugural Australian Rural Woman of the Year, and she had a station just out of Derby, and we talked to her a lot about livestock as being weeders, seeders and feeders, and she was growing native grasses up there then and harvesting the seed for distribution to other pastoralists and across her own property. And Ian was probably one of the few blokes up there that had actually handled harvesting machinery and could go out there and service her machines for her, because there wasn't any other fellas up there that could sort that out for her.
I think what it actually did is that, you know, we always had the aim of coming back and buying our own land, which we did. But when that proceed that happened, we knew by then that I think we knew we were going to do things differently, completely differently. We thought, what's the point of just going back into the system of farming that had been? And we did do that a little bit to start off with. And but we always knew there was going to be a different way of doing things. And basically, even the straight economic module of, you know, we started off very small, you know, 1,600 acres. And I think even back then, you know, in the wheat belt of Western Australia, especially the eastern wheat belt, you needed 5,000 or 6,000 acres to survive. So we knew we had to step outside the square and take things to a different level if we were even going to survive or compete.
I just would love to speak more on your Indigenous, you know, the work that you did in those communities, because actually our theme this year is about sacred regeneration. So do you feel like some of your learnings was actually directly from what from some of the wisdom that you had learned just with working in the communities? Is that a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you realise is, as we were youngsters, you know, in our early 20s at that stage, and there was a lot of information put to us and things we saw that you don't really pick up on at the time. And it's even been up to 20, 30 years later on, you come across some bit of knowledge and you think, gee, I remember seeing that, or I remember one of the old guys talking to us about that. So we received a lot of information that we didn't know we received at that time. And just saw, by being able to just sit back and get out of the hustle and bustle of the world, it actually really opened our minds up. And I think we're ready to receive that at that stage. Just a complete different way of looking at not only land systems, but life.
I remember going on your property with Christine Jones, and we could walk around your pastures, your native pastures, and eat little berries and pieces of, you know, your native grasses, which would have all been sort of Indigenous type of grasses. So, yeah,
that's been the real beauty up on the northern farms, is just seeing the return of the biodiversity in the native plants. And yeah, certainly it's given us a lot of resilience when we get summer rain, which fortunately we've just had in the last week again. So that's going to tick things on nicely for this year, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm also, I was really amazed to know you're actually broadacre. You're broadacre farmers. And one of the things in farming is that when you're in broadacre, it's really hard. It's really difficult to be a regenerative farmer because of the way that how important you know, when you're on such a large scale and you're having to deal with weeds. So I just wanted you to, could you share with our audience about the challenges of being broadacre farmers and how many acres you're actually managing now? Like it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, we're farming, we're running over 65,000 acres at the moment, and that spreads over a 100-kilometre radius. And, Yeah, and that was the trick to it. I know over the years, we actually put was, you can do that if you're only just on a little small bit and you've got the time to muck around and do it. So we've had to put a lot of efficiencies into it. And so that's developing machinery, how we run our livestock, the whole lot. And actually, yeah, as we've got, it actually works more efficiently that way. So that was the key to it. We're integrating the state-of-the-art modern technology. We've got all the bells and whistles in the latest machinery. We run 3 seeding rigs and a couple of harvesting outfits and that, but being able to incorporate that with this ancient wisdom of what goes on. So that's been the key in integrating those two.
And I think one of the big keys has been the livestock being able to work across the entire landscape and what we're able to learn through their behaviour and enabling them, I guess, to be those transferers of the nutrients and the microbes throughout the landscape. We're very fortunate, particularly on the northern farms. There's a lot of native bushland, and so the animals can utilise a lot of that, the plants and microbes from those areas and transfer them out into the cropping land. So the animals are really key instigators of that regeneration. But I think too, one of the real exciting parts has been just that soil progression and plant succession. So that's where some of the changes come from a weed management perspective. I mean, we have to kickstart with changing that soil biology or microbial community to start with, but over a period of years you can find that the plant succession changes so that the weeds are less and less dominant. So every paddock and property is different in the rate of change. And some, the early stage properties, we have been still needing to use some chemical and stuff to control weeds, because at the end of the day, we do have to grow some crops that we can harvest and maintain. And yeah, the landscape's very large out there, and there's huge areas that need support and change. Salinity is a massive issue throughout the West Australian wheat belt. So we've just got to do whatever we can. And we have found that by using the cropping process and putting the Nutrisoil and the compost extracts in the liquid form at seeding time with a crop, and then having the plant directly there accessing it with its root system, we're actually able to have an impact on some of those really seriously degraded parts of land which you would have really struggled with otherwise, because they just were so compacted and devoid of life. You really would battle otherwise.
I think it's also you got to in our operation, you just got to really stick true to your philosophy of what you're doing. When you get big machinery involved and all this technology involved, people can get caught up with it a bit, and you're in a climate-controlled cab and everything's all happening, and you probably lose a bit of touch of actually what's actually happening down there in the soil. So as it is at the moment, with our things, so that's where your philosophy comes in, that does not take control. So, the animals are what guide the situation, and, a handful of sheep can stop $1 million seeding outfit while everything just moves around and goes through it. What's got to take priority. And also you just got to look at your philosophies of what are your outcomes, how are you going to harvest? Are you harvesting with teeth, or you're harvesting with a knife, or you're harvesting with a combination of both? So what are your profit drivers? Is it all about yield? No, it's not all about yield. It's all about profit at the end of the day. Yes, it is. And how do you derive that? So when you're looking at a crop, and on a new farm, there might be a slight weed burden, and you might graze that crop, then harvest it, and just different ways of actually looking at your outcomes to take your ecosystem forward.
I think just on top of that, with Ian mentioned it's all about profit, but at the end of the day too, I think probably what drives us more is actually the landscape restoration. I know there's been many a time where we've dropped a paddock out and said, well, okay, this paddock's really going to be better off just growing as much as it possibly can regardless, and then fortunately having the livestock base, you can always utilise that. But yeah, sometimes it's really a case of healing something in the early stages as well, so that there's some pretty vulnerable parts of the landscape out there, and yeah, sometimes it's a slowly journey for some of those parts.
So would you consider yourself regenerative farmers now, but it sounds like you began your whole farming journey as regenerative farmers, probably before the term was even coined. The whole dynamic you've had with the landscape and it's particularly with Nutrisoils and the worm juice, Like you kind of began as regenerative farmers way back before that terminology even existed.
Absolutely. I think, I think one of the privileges that we actually had when we went back and bought our first farm, it was really great not having a generational farm to actually have to look after. You know, we only had ourselves to please, and there was many a year, you know, we took a few big leaps of faith in trying things, and there was many a time we sat back and said, well, this could send us broke, and what's the worst that can happen when we go back up north? And, you know, and we just threw all in there with total faith because, you know, we didn't have 100 years behind us saying, oh, gee, we could lose that farm, you know. So that gave us a lot of freedom to do a lot of things where people with that probably mightn't necessarily do. And we had no one else to convince other than ourselves.
Ian and I often get asked, you know, people look at your system as you know, it's a very good system and it produces quality food, it's profitable, low chemical load. But a key to that system is having native grasses. So what you're doing is you're letting those native grasses grow over summer. And when I talk with other farmers, they find it difficult because they say, well, we don't grow native grasses here. Native grasses don't grow on my land. You know, a pine forest might come up or something. So, you know, what would you say to help farmers through that transition and thought process?
I think it's a matter of patience sometimes, Nakala, because I often mention the North Farm and then we have the South Farm as well, and they're both very different. The South Farm actually had been farmed for a lot longer period, was some of the more earlier settled country, and had been farmed a lot longer, and the native seed populations there were very, very sparse. You didn't see much in the way of native grasses and things. And so whereas the North Farm, which had been farmed, you know, probably half the length of time, was a lot quicker and had more of the natural bushlands around, so there was a bit more availability of seed. But what we found is that the South Farm now has got a wonderful diversity of native grasses that have come from who knows where. They've taken a bit longer, but they've still come. So I think the practice is just continuing to work on that soil ecology and utilising the animals and their capacity to transfer what's needed. So having as much diversity for them within the landscape, and that's part of what we're looking at. Some of these big acreages now is revegetating up to about 30% of that landscape back to more native vegetation to give the animals more opportunity again to have access to that diversity in their diet and the microbes associated with that, but also, of course, all the natural resilience benefits you get from greater vegetation throughout the landscape. But, yeah, just to realise that the plants will come, but sometimes it takes longer for some of the farms that have been farmed for a lot longer period of time. But, yeah, it will happen from what we've experienced anyway. You've just got
to, I think this is where the quorum sensing comes in, you know, you've just got to persist with the what you put out there and what everything you go about to get that stimulation happening. And it's funny you say that, you know, and I've had farmers from, you know, the Great Plains in America when I've been there say to us, oh, I don't think we've got any native grasses, and you just look back in their history and saw what that used to produce, and I'm sure they're there if they get that quorum sensing, they sense that right.
Do you ever have any small trees come up and you just sow, you know, straight into them?
Yes, there's quite often, particularly in the North Farm, you get the small trees coming baback at times, absolutely.
There's actually, yeah, some of that country has only been cleared since, you know, the late 80s. And, yeah, and even some of our older country, you know, down at Wildcatcham has probably been cleared for over 100 years. It's amazing once you take a lot of the industrial inputs out of the system and you get things going right, the actually amount of stuff that does come up. And I'm sure if we didn't keep our grazing practices right and keep doing what we're doing, you know, it'll probably go back to bush fairly quickly. And yeah, so it's just amazing what actually does come up.
Another challenge, sorry, this is just following, I have so many questions about, you know, Diane Ian's system from farmers all the time. I know what people are wondering. Another challenge is you're growing on sandy soil. I know that you have other soil types, and people generally think that you're just growing on sandy soil, and this may only work on sandy soil, but you also grow in clay soils. You've got a mixture, is that right?
Yes, we have, and the clay soils and some of the loamy soils have been, they actually have some wonderful outcomes. But we've probably got just about every soil type other than basalt, I think. We don't have any of that nice stuff, but we've got a fair range from very acid aluminium toxic type soils through to gravels and some clay loams and some hard setting clays as well, particularly on a lot of the new country, and some of that hard setting clay is very affected by salinity too. So there's all sorts of issues out there.
I'm really fascinated just from my having worked with a lot of farmers in the past, and it's always really wonderful to share the failures, I think, and I think that farmers to talk about them amongst as you know, with mentors and as a group together, you know, what's with you, you know, some of the failures that you've learnt through and worked with to, you know, really help support the next transition of making your landscape bigger and better. What were some of those that you might want to share with our audience?
I think probably one of the biggest ones was when we first came back to a farm, we only had 1,600 acres and no machinery and no money. And so being such a very small farm, we were trying to get as much out of it as we can. And we started off and to get a quick return doing some traditional paddock practices, and we had this one paddock down in a lower lying salty area, and it had been left. It probably hadn't been touched for 20 plus, maybe 30 years more. It was just sitting there, and it had a lot of blue bush and different salt bushes growing on it, but it had just been let really build up, and you know, it had mushrooms growing on it the size of dinner plates and in this really salty saline environment. And we thought, gee, we need this bit of land. You know, it was only 70 or 80 hectares or something, you know, because we were really pushing the things and we hadn't really quite fine-tuned our knowledge. So we ploughed out all these different salt bushes and things and put a couple of crops on it. And
Fortunately without fertiliser. And so we couldn't afford it. And these crops just produced, like in a year out there in some of the really dry years, there might have only been an average 1 tonne to the hectare yield. You know, these were doing 2, 2.5 and 3. And we thought, this is amazing. So we did it again, and then we did it again and blew the system, pushed it too hard, sent that paddock straight back to where it was again. And it's probably only now that paddock's just starting to get back to where it was. So it was a big learning curve, actually, how you can crash a well built up natural system, and that's when we started getting things like penetrometers. And on that country, I could put the penetrometer into the hilt with one hand, and I could step over the fence, so 2 paces away. In the traditional cropping country, you can get and just about be breaking the penetrometer in half at 2 inches, and that was just a difference of what the natural system had done. So that really got us thinking back to our roots up in the Kimberley and talking to the Indigenous people up there and looking land system different. We thought, no, we're going to do things a bit differently here.
Hi, and Ian, there was someone very special in your life who I have been able to have come in today. So I thought that I would just announce a special guest, Rochelle Armstrong. Rochelle, Phoebe, can you let Rochelle in?
Hi, Rochelle.
Hello, lovely to see you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on today, Rochelle. I think it's been, Rochelle left Nutrisoil last year, and she has a very exciting journey that she is going on. And I have people ask me every day, you know, how's Rochelle, what's she up to? So I really wanted to bring her in and get her to connect with us all while she's in her transition.
Yeah, let me say first, I'll never forget that plane trip from Sydney to Lismore, where I was looking over the seat into the front seat and looking at the books that this lady was reading, and they were the same as the ones that I was reading. It was the pre-reading before an Elaine Ingham 2-week university. I think it was a university degree in 2 weeks. It was unbelievable. But that was certainly the start of a beautiful friendship with Di and then Ian as well. So I loved hearing, I did hear what you were saying before, Ian, about that time before you took on the farm and how you were ready to take up certain messages and things that were being put out to you. And that's where Justin and I have been the last few months since we left Nutrisoil. We did want to just jump in and get busy with the next thing and, make a big impact in the world. But we actually had to just stop everything. And I think there's going to be lessons that I need to be further along, but, this is where we're up to now. But we've had to go through our own transition or metamorphosis to sort of slow down to be able to then, have the knowledge and wisdom to be able to go forward. So I feel like, it'll be a really good learning exercise that we can share with others. We're always so rushing to make an impact in the world, or on the farm or, wherever. And you really have to stop. And so we've been in this requisite stillness. I've been painting walls, things that I would never expect in my life to do, because I would be too busy to do something in the house. But it's allowed us to speak to the right people, travel around. The car time is really important, just talking and thinking. And we've actually, for a long time been talking to our very close friend, Nicole Masters at Integrity Soils. And I know you guys have interviewed Nicole at least once here. So most people would know of Nicole. She's New Zealand based, but origin is New Zealand, but she's actually based in Montana now in America. And she has coaches or consultants in New Zealand and Australia. So we've been talking weekly, and I've been meeting with her team as well, and not rushing into anything because we don't want to do business as usual. We really want to create something that is unique and is relevant in the future. We want this emergent future that is different from the one that we've got now. So it's quite a challenge to try and do something that you haven't done before. So I only say all this to hopefully inspire others that are trying to do things differently, that it's not easy. As exciting as it is, it's a roller coaster because, you have to have, you can't have the confidence that you need every day to be able to do things differently. But if you set, do your appropriate, goal setting and all that sort of thing based on really knowing who you are and what really is your genius, what, the areas that you can work in, then that's when, you can find the people and the gaps where there's areas that aren't your strengths and pull a team together. And that's the sort of place we've been working on. And getting very close to announcements. We certainly want to be working with Nicole. There's been a connection for many, many years. It was Christine Jones, again, we mentioned Christine, that introduced us back in the day. She was the first, speaker that we were having at Nutrisoil that had a real knowledge on vermiculture because she'd run her own business with worm farming. And so, our connection has been strong over the many years. And now we're getting to know each other in a whole new way because, it's like a marriage, like when you go to work with someone, you've got to know them really well and know yourself really well. So, look, an insight, who wants an insight into Nicole? Just between you and me. We all know the Nicole, that speaks at, many of us, that speaks at events where she's, funny and quirky and you know, always got answers to people's questions. I think I've seen, you know, so many people are impressed by that. But speaking to her weekly over a long period of time, I've been absolutely gobsmacked at how, you know, she's not just quick-witty, you know, in front of people. She's actually a really, what's the word? She's prolific worker. She's such a hard worker. She's almost every week there's some, there's updates. She's like, I've got to update you. I've got to update you. There's so many things going on and so many people wanting to, know more from, that she can help with. But that I suppose has been a surprise, just to sort of see how many projects she can be working on at once. And and that's what I'd like to help her with, and that's where someone like that, we've seen many great thinkers, just burn out. I'd like to be there to be able to, support and build a really amazing impact business structure around, what she has to offer. So yeah, anyway.
Oh, Rochelle, that is just amazing. I think this is what I love about our Regen community. Like, we've got so many businesses like Nutrisoil and all of the businesses that are out there. It's actually like almost a non-competitive dynamic. It's very different. And if we look at all the layers of that and what that means, the way that we work in our landscapes and work in our soil and work on, all of the different things like nutrient density and getting the plants really high in nutrition on so many levels. If we can actually, your comment about making sure that, and Nakala, that when we had a discussion together about working on ourselves, how it is actually crucial that if all of us are really looking inwards to really be clear about what our intentions are, that as farmers we are producing food to our foodies and our consumers, and how important it is that what we produce and the way that we do it and the care that we put towards growing our food can only be of benefit just to not just people, not just to our foodies, but to our landscape. So that I just think is such a powerful message, Rochelle, just really wonderful. And I think that, the Haggertys have that mindset, and our regenerative farmers have that mindset, and conventional farmers have that vision too. Our farmers across the world always have the very hope of doing the very best that they can. So, it's not pitting regenerative farmers against conventional farmers. I think that's a really important conversation to have as well. Like that whole discussion around all of us working together on achieving and learning more. It's just, and that's one of Nicole's superpowers and your superpower as well, Rochelle.
It's definitely a very co-creative space, that's for sure, working with regeneration as a whole. So I'd like to ask the three of you, talking directly to younger farmers who want to move into this space, start within the regenerative model, what advice would you have for those who are wanting to make this journey and start squarely at the regenerative space and not, say, necessarily be in a process of transitioning? What words of advice would you give to our younger farmers out there beginning their journey?
I was just going to throw in, I think that, we often say, you've got to observe nature, and it's just really hard to know exactly what that means and if you've got enough time to slow down and do it. But I think that, regenerative agriculture has put together the tools of observation to make that a bit of a toolkit so people can sort of start to, Ian mentioned the penetrometer, they can start to, put a brief case together of what these tools are and start to actually learn, about water infiltration and things like that. That's one place to start. And that's where, Nicole's first online course is just the foundations of doing all that measuring and that sort of thing. So
I'd like to just say, if possible, if I was a young farmer wanting to go this way, is to try and have whatever opportunity you could to get on land with farmers that are currently practicing this stuff. Just to give you a bit of an insight, Ian and I's plan in the beginning wasn't necessarily to grow a bigger and bigger land mass. In effect, the land has actually just kept coming to us. We've had neighbours ringing up asking if we would farm their farm, if we would buy their farm. Other people coming and buying land that they'd like us to operate, purely because they've seen, I guess, some of the outcomes and some of the landscape restoration, even though things might look a bit different at times. I think there's a lot of people interested in trying to restore a landscape, and the awareness that we need to do these things fairly urgently. So whilst we've been growing a massive business, a lot of it's been about that big landscape restoration. When you're looking at water cycle restoration, both the small water cycle and the large water cycle, there's a lot of land mass in Western Australia that's fairly hot and dry, and not really functioning. So we're really going to have an impact over a lot of land, but also part of that is enabling the opportunity for other people to come in. We've actually got some new people coming in working with us now that have got different interests and different skill sets. One lady now who is a school teacher who's going to be helping us with education of other people coming on board, because she's got that capacity to share knowledge. But she's also got an interest in bees, so she's setting up herself a bee business on farm, given that there's flowering plants pretty well all year round, so that's going to be a really good outcome for her. We've got another young fella that's very adept more in the IT and understanding markets and things like that, who's come on board, and he's really interested in doing chooks, pastured meat birds and egg birds as well. So given that we've got such a big land base and a lot of resources, it's an opportunity for people that want to come in and work alongside to actually build their own business within an existing business as well. And I think another one of the key reasons for why we've tried to, we've actually built the land mass that we've had is we're wanting to try and change how business is done. And Helen, you were talking about, all farmers are wanting to do the best by their land, and absolutely certainly that is 100% correct. We just have an issue there where the marketplace is not fully recognising the value of foodstuffs or fibres that are grown with a full nature outcome. The market system has been driven of getting cheap, getting food and fibre and everything as cheap as possible off the producer, and perhaps some of the money being made in the middle person who's between them and the customer, putting on a profit margin that might not necessarily be there all the time for the farmer. So, we're really wanting to work on that recognition that for a fully functioning ecosystem and biodiverse and thriving planet, we need to be really respecting and valuing everything that it produces for us. And, that's going to take a bit of doing, but there's a lot of people very keen and understanding that now, particularly with the climate change stuff that's going on constantly in the media. And then with COVID, reinforcing the necessity of health and immune system function, and without appropriate health in our whole environment, so the foods we eat, the water we drink and the air that we breathe, we haven't got any hope of full immune system function to cope with all these disease pressures that are currently there and likely to be in the future if we don't change our track. So, so we're not just about getting bigger for bigness sake, it's about trying to increase opportunities for having more of an impact along those lines, but also bringing other people in to add to the diversity of the whole landscape as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to now introduce finally a true exciting definition, natural intelligence farming. Please expand on that. Tell us where that came from. How did that come about? How does it relate to your work with Nutrisoil? Let's talk natural intelligence farming.
I guess it sort of evolved. I mean, in the beginning, we thought of ourselves as biological farmers, and we were using, basically just swapping conventional inputs for soil-friendly inputs. And that was, all going nicely. But then as we stepped back a little bit, and I think as what Ian was describing in the beginning with the understanding with mixing with Indigenous populations and people and elders, and then our work with Jane, who we started in 2001 as well. I think you had Jane on a podcast just recently. Just starting to understand that interaction between all those organisms within an environment, from the soil through the plants and the animals. I think when you combine that with some of the understanding Indigenous people have of how the landscape functions and interacts, and our part in it as just being a part of that, not a driver of that, you really were able to appreciate then that natural intelligence was there functioning, whether we as humans were or not, and actually was far superior probably than what we could ever dream up. And it was probably a little bit tongue-in-cheek as well, and having a bit of a go at the artificial intelligence, which is predominating throughout the world. Everything was all about artificial intelligence. We thought, oh, heck, really natural intelligence to us is the way to go. And to us, it's the far superior, way to go.
I keep on muting myself badly. Di, another challenge that farmers have is how in the world do you make your own extract for that many thousand hectares? Could you talk us through a little bit of that on-farm biofermenting process?
Yeah, Nakala, we started off with just a small extractor, which was purchased through YLAD, through Rhonda, sourced one for us, and that worked extremely well. But as the property grew, we just couldn't produce enough. This year I think we're hoping to probably knock out about around that 3 million litre mark of extract, and which will go onto the property. We had to look at a different system. So just working with others, and that we've developed a big stirring cum air system in tanks. So we're doing it in 20,000 litre. We've got two 20,000 litre extractors these days, and we can feed them with a telehandler, and just different pumping systems. So it's very simple. One person can make 100,000 litres of extract just easily in a day, and so we just that's where innovation had to come in of how we could stir it, how we could keep the air going through, and how we could store it, and just all those logistics. So we use different sources of inoculation in that extract. We buy some, we actually source in some aerated compost, and we've got a really good supplier that does that for us, and actually make special special type of compost purely for the extractor and what we actually want in it. And we've got some Johnson Stew stuff that we're doing ourselves, and then with some worm castings and things like that. So as much diversity we can get in that extract that we do, and then as much as we can feed it, it'd be great. It's great.
And another question I get asked is, if you have compost extract, why do you need to add the worm liquid with it? What's your reasoning around that?
I think the worm liquid was the starting point at the end of the day, and it was in the very early days with Jane. She said to us that if whatever is going on to your farm should have gone through the gut of a worm first, and I guess that's what the light bulb moment was when I met Rochelle on the plane, and understood what Graham had developed with being a liquid, worm liquid, was the fact that we could actually utilise something like that in reality. Just had to change from a granular-based system on our air seeders to a liquid-based system, which Ian did fairly promptly, and so it made it achievable. But so I guess the worm liquid was the starting point, and then of course with Elaine's knowledge, a combination of using the compost as well just gave us once again that opportunity that there are ways that nature provides fertility. So there's the worm system, there's the composting system, and there's the animal gut system. So those three things in interaction we felt were keys to help restore the natural facility process as quickly as possible from as diverse a range as we possibly could achieve. As
Di said, when we started in the early days, we used plenty of different things. We're just swapping inputs for inputs, and plenty of biological inputs, and plenty of bugs in a jug and things like that, and that things were working to an extent, but it was always very costly, and we weren't quite getting the results that we needed. And that's when we sort of hit a patch in it. We thought, well, what are we going to do? You know, we just can't keep doing it these ways. And we were making up all these weird and wonderful brews and blocking jets and having to dump boom spray tank loads and liquid cart tank loads. And yeah, it was hard going. And that's when we stripped it right back and said, what would nature want? And really, when you did it, it was there looking us right in the face. And you've got to build a system around compost, worms and animals, you know, integration. So I said, we only really need those three basic things. So that's when we put a product like Nutrisoil, like a worm-based product with the extracts, and it was just a no-brainer. But we don't put out 1 litre of extract on the property unless it's got a small amount of Nutrisoil with it, because we believe there's an energetical thing about it, and the two of them just go hand in glove together. And so part of our program, if we're putting out an extract foliar, it's got a worm-based product like Nutrisoil in it, or down the tube or whatever, we always put the two together.
Something else I just wanted to add from the sort of development, you know, of Nutrisoil over the years was, you know, we keep talking about us, you know, supplying you with the worm juice, but the growth of, you know, Ian and Di's farming enterprise and Nutrisoil and the impact that we've been at is directly, you know, related to the sort of feedback that they were giving to us. We would never have been able to imagine in our wildest dreams that you could, you know, cart this product over to Western Australia and put on the sandy soils, because everyone assumes they're all sandy, and make a difference. So it was, you know, it's definitely been a mutual benefit to both businesses. Yeah.
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 The way that you set up your compost extract machine, did you get that made yourself? Did you design it yourself? What would you say to someone if they're looking for a large extract machine for broadacre?
Oh, there's companies that are actually doing them now, and they've got the agitators and you know, what we need in the tanks and that. So there's actually companies where now you can just ring up and order one if you know what you want, and you know, get one delivered and plug in and go. So yeah, all that work's been done, so that's actually happening out there. So it's pretty easy these days. Yeah.
I'm gonna take a question. I think we're all being polite, but Nakala, you're going awesome.
I feel rude asking so many questions. I hold myself back.
No, this is fantastic. It's so good. I'm just like, we should make this the Nakala, Kelly and Helen show for Regenerate for a while. You just go.
I definitely think we should do a series with you, Nakala. Definitely, 100%.
You go for it.
Well, I would love to ask, just to share about the fact that natural intelligence farming uses some chemical on broadacre, and you get to places where you don't have to use as much, certainly the most minimal I've ever seen, yet your grain has no chemical load on it. And I think the difference between your farming, like the grain that you produce, and the grain of farmers that might not have been able to sort of start their regenerative journey and are using the traditional system, is that chemical load, one, and the nutrient integrity and secondary metabolites and things like that. But if people don't know, the maximum residue limit for barley is 10 milligrams per kilogram on grain, and Di and Ian have no residue detectable whatsoever on their grain. And I think that we know that all of the health concerns that Di talked about, the rise in autism and the rise in autoimmune diseases, it's very difficult to tie this in. We can see a trend from 1950 sort of upwards, and we really need the medical profession and biologists and we need farmers and scientists all to get together to glue this together, but it's so big and so complex. I think we're turning a blind eye to that general rise when we actually do know that chemical load is a burden on our human health and many other environmental conditions. So I just wanted anyone who is watching this podcast to know that they are producing amazing food and that food needs to be recognised, and we need people to realise the premiumness of that food and large organisations to do that.
I think one of the key things, we're very fortunate to associate with Walter Yenna. Other than Dr. Christine Jones, Walter Yenna is probably one of the key scientists who's supported us a lot along the way, and the understanding we've been able to gain from him. But I guess when you're looking at a soil system, the key things to keep out of the way well and truly are pesticides and fungicides and things like that, which actually destroy those the diversity in that soil and plant and animal insect life, but for us in our low rainfall area, tillage is probably the most destructive to soil life. It's a very hot, dry environment, and to break up those soil structures really has a significant decline in how that soil functions. So we're all about what Walter talks about is rebuilding that soil sponge, and that is through plants, and we do a lot of multi-species plantings now, and we have a big pasture phase for the sheep, which has naturally supported biodiversity from the plants that are growing there now, which is fantastic. And we also have a rotation with the crops so that they're not we are getting a reasonable spacing with pasture phases now. So we have paddocks now that even on the second year we can go in with no chemical use whatsoever, but that's not always the case. So we prefer to use a little bit of chemical to start with rather than tillage, because that's just way more detrimental to what we're doing. But it's the microbial interaction which takes out all the toxins. So when you talk to Walter and talking about rhizosheaths and things, the protective capacity of that soil to break down toxins, because there's a lot of soils present around the world that have either heavy metal residues or other toxin loads that we might not even be aware of. But it's by reinforcing those that microbial population and the transference that we have through the animal gut microbes that we can have a really robust workforce to do that and break down toxins, prevent heavy metals uptake into the plants, prevent any chemical uptake into the plants. So that's the key when it comes to ensuring the quality of that food stuff and that it is free of all those toxins, is having that intact microbial system functioning, and that's where it's always been the priority and the focus of our business.
I think it also, what it does, it can show other farmers, if you got other farmers and they were looking into these things and said, well, you're not going to use any chemical at all, but they'd probably find it too much of a barrier initially to get over. They'd say, well, how am I going to do it? And we're basically going straight organic, and how's it going to happen? And our aim always is to use as very little as possible and using none at all, but to use it as a tool when you've got a farm in transition, because we've taken a lot of new land all the time, and knowing that you've got that detoxification process you can put in place to detoxify those chemicals and get them out of the system very quick, gives a lot of other farmers coming into the system thinking, well, I'm not just going to have to jump from one to the other, I'm going to go through this valley of death and destroy my finances. I can actually slowly move out of one system into another and still get that detoxification happening. Because what we've got to realise at this stage is, as we explained earlier on, and we've concentrated on our production and what we're doing and getting our lands-based systems in place, and it's only now we're working on marketing of that produce, is we've still been selling our produce, the bulk of it, into traditional industrial markets. So we're picking up the same price as every other industrial farmer out there. And So that's why we've got to play that game in the middle a little bit. So we've got to keep things ticking along to actually keep the banks happy and keeps things moving forward, so we can't take any shocks to the system. And I'm sure as this food gets recognised for its value that it is and attracts the premium, I don't talk premiums, I talk price point, to associate the ecological outcomes that it does, it will take some more of that shock factor out of a farm actually going into a farmer going into that system. He can move things along a little bit quicker.
May I jump in? Yeah, so it's really fascinating with farmers and this work that takes, it's a big leap of faith, deciding to, well, I'm a conventional farmer and I've been doing it this way. And I think the message really is so strong that it's actually a very slow process in terms of the transitioning, because if you don't jump in too quick and decide that's it, I've had enough of the chemicals, tomorrow I'm going cold turkey, it'll actually be worse for the system than for you to just do it in a really gentle way. And I think that Rochelle and Nakala, you would know that it takes a good 3 years of understanding, learning, of transitioning, because nature works in a beautiful way, and it works in a way that's slow and fast. But I think that if that's the beauty of the learning through this process, that everyone as farmers, it is actually a space where it doesn't happen overnight. That's the most important thing that we need to let everyone know, and not just farmers, but foodies. Like, don't just, if you hear a farmer using a bit of chemical, don't, jump on and say, oh my gosh, they're using chemical, it's really bad. Because the thing is, over the process of getting farmers on this journey, it is a slow process, and we just need everyone to understand that, the support of the knowledge around how that works is really important. It's what I love about this podcast is, our audience is quite wide. So I'm just wanting to share that with our audience, because it is a really important point.
Yeah, and I think that's just where we need to bear in mind is that the integrity of that microbial system is key, so that it not only sources the nutrients for the plants, but it also does prevent uptake of toxins and breakdowns. That's what nature does. That's what the microbes do around the world, is make the world a better place. So we just have to accept that. We have some severely damaged soils out there, a lot of them that have lost all their air spaces and with compaction and so forth. And we need those microbes to transform that for us. And it can take time. We do cold turkey all the new land now, but we've got the backup then of other lands that we've been farming for longer. So if it goes a bit pear-shaped on some of it, so be it. But it doesn't usually. I think probably the most challenging soils are those that are seriously compacted, because of course if there's no oxygen there, it's very hard for the microbes to be alive. But yeah, certainly other soil types seem to handle cold turkey fairly well.
I think you look at some of these chemicals, and 30 years ago, or however long, some of them a long time ago, were introduced. A lot of trials were done on these chemicals. Their results were probably quite reasonable about the carryovers, because they were detoxifying. So you fast forward 30 years, our land systems and our microbial integrity of our land through those amount of years of synthetic inputs, we've driven that microbial systems in the land right way down. So maybe the chemical's still going on, but it's actually not detoxifying nowhere near as quick as what it did in its original, when it was originally introduced. So by doing this system and keeping your rates right down and using it as a tool when you can, it's a way of transitioning through. And what we looked at is, rather than like this going cold turkey and scaring everyone, how could, if this is going to have a worldwide impact and a bigger scale to actually help our planet, we've got to make things possible so people can do them and show that it can be done over a broad scale in low rainfall environments. 2020, over most of our farm, we received 87 mil for the growing season with no summer rain, and we harvested all our crops and had a profitable crop. So, and it still can be done in such a brittle environment like that and successfully.
Ian, I think you're one of the best people to challenge people. Helen said that it's a long process and it can be very slow. Do you think that that's always the case? Is there another way of looking at it? Just to...
I find it, for us, if you know what, the thing is to get to know what you're actually looking at. Our eyes are trained to look at a synthetic system, and where it can be slow is actually in your mind of what you're looking at, actually changing what goalposts and what you're looking at actually in the field. And I think that's why it can be long, because you've actually a farmer who's going from base one. It's about their journey as well, and getting their mindset right. Otherwise they'll stress themselves too much, because their crops or their pastures will look different to start off with, like a different colour of green, a different shade of green, and its growth patterns are different to a fed system. So I think it's more of actually your own learning. The quicker you can start reading and learning and linking in with the right podcasts and the information, so when you see what you see it's not a problem, rather than just looking over the fence of something that's highly fed. But results in the paddock, as Di said, all our country, we took on 24,000 acres in 2020 and cold turkey the whole lot. And our results were amazing on it, like in year one, big results on it.
I think that's why I said early on in the piece, if I was a young farmer wanting to go down this path, is to try and, get to know someone who's been doing it for a while, so that you can, I guess, get some of that vision, because our eyes don't always tell the truth of where you're wanting to go as far as soil health and progression and regeneration occur, because a lot of it is happening under the soil surface. So really to know what to look for and what's okay, and if you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what I was saying before about observations. I have really special memories being out in those big paddocks with Ian and Di will just get so excited about one plant because what that means, if that plant, probably a native grass was to grow, that means, a whole lot more is going underground and things are on the move. But see, those observation skills are so well honed and over so many years. So I actually used to always say that nature's extremely forgiving and results are happening straight away. It's just that it's microscopic. And if we've had many a farmer say, I used your stuff and it didn't work. And it's like that's the best farmer, because they're telling you. And then there'd be we have a whole list of things to talk about, because they haven't changed their viewpoint of it. I have to have noticeably longer, greener grass that I'm falling over to know that this product works. And I'm like, it's not about the product, it's about the system, and it's about looking for insects. Do you have more ladybugs? There's a whole lot of you've got a list there, Nakala, of the about 20 or 30 things that you could probably double that list of different types of observations that you could be making. And if you don't make that shift to learn about the different sorts of like smells and all sorts of things, that then you might be missing actual success.
I think that's a key point there, Shell. When you look at when you talk about the results being microscopic to start, and I guess we were very fortunate, along with Walter Yen, is also Mr. Phil Lee, who with his amazing microscope has taken some really fantastic footage of some of the rhizosheaths around some of the plants we've grown, and showing air spaces being created. And when you look at the amount of compaction, particularly in the wheat belt, there's a heck of a lot of deep ripping going on in conventional farming systems out here, or moldboard ploughing, or all sorts of things, lots of tillage trying to get air back into the soils. And when you see those plants and the microbes doing that, you can't see that on top of the surface, but you can see it with a microscope like Phil's. And that's what we're all about at the end of the day, because once you get that, the air spaces back in there and all that whole nutrient and water cycling going on, you are starting to step in the right direction.
I think also one of the things is you see a lot, farmers will, as they start something new, they'll go into it and they'll set up control and set up a proper system where they've got X amount of, which classes their control field, and right beside it they're doing their other field, and they battle a lot because we're always just comparing one to the other just over the fence, and you can have only metres away the control, and microbial systems travel kilometres under the soil, and so you're not really achieving much. And what it's actually showing is you actually haven't quite got your mindset in the right place to what you want to do. I'll do a whole farm approach, and my control is at the end of the year when I sit down and do my budget and say, well, the farm went quite well, everything went right well. We sold these amount of animals, they weaned off at great weaning rates, or whatever you did, or the crop did X amount, and I ended up with this amount of money in the bank at the end of the day. The farm has gone forward. Ecological, I'm still profitable, I'm going forward, and it grows from there, rather than comparing what might have been on a fed system in any 1 year, but maybe what was your ecological negative capital that you created to achieve that. So just look at your values and your goals of where you're heading as a whole, and then go forward.
I saw the most fascinating conversation had at the recent Big No-Till event. There were two farmers talking about their yield, and the conversation had flipped. So the average yield might have been 6 tonne, and they were so proud that their yield was 3 tonne, that they were more profitable than the 6 tonne farmer. And I thought people are getting really comfortable about talking about the average yield and being proud that they weren't the average yield. So I just thought that was fascinating. One of the tools that Phil Lee uses all the time is the penetrometer and water infiltration. And I think that's, so he gets this so amazingly well, because he's looking at it under the microscope and he's seeing all of this airspace. And if you push down a penetrometer, that's going to show you how much airspace you have. And when you do a water infiltration test, that'll show you the airspace. And when I was with Phil and we were at Diane's, and we did a water infiltration test on their native grass, and then a water infiltration test away from the native grass where there was bare soil. And it was amazing. The native grass just sucked that moisture in. And what those grass roots are doing is they're just knitting together that soil, and they're keeping lots of airspace, and they've got lots of microbial food and activity going on. So if you can get good water infiltration testing happening on your property and penetrometer testing, I think that's a really good way to monitor, along with your budget, how well you're actually doing.
Now that we're talking about using different instruments for measurement, I'd love, for people who don't know what a penetrometer is, or even like what a bricks meter is, I'd love maybe, Ian, if you could share with our audience some of the measurement tools that you use that cost, $20 for a penetrometer, or $15 or $50 for a bricks meter. What are these measurement tools, and what is it that how you use them, and what is the thing that really is important for farmers to know about them?
I think Di can actually explain the tools, but I think probably the best tool is yourself, and what you actually sense and feel. And I actually, these days, we don't use the tools a lot. If I actually want to know what the bricks is, we just chew on a bit of, pull it up and chew on it. You know, once you get your own senses into, just what's going on. But to just test that out against yourself, your penetrometers.
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, yes, we did use penetrometers, and we still use a refractometer a fair bit to measure the sugars, and we used to do a bit of water infiltration testing and stuff. But it's just got unmanageable to do it over the size land now. But most, as Ian's saying, you are the tool, your eyes, and a shovel is probably the most important tool we have, is digging things up all the time, and and just observation.
You get if you're around your properties enough, you get to feel it. You can check out 20,000 acres of country in the morning, and you're driving across some paddocks at 80 kilometres an hour, and you can feel it in your ute. So you feel that change when you drive from one to the other. When you hop out, you can feel it under your feet. So you know things are happening, and your observations of what are out there, the spiders in the morning, the whole changes on everything that's happening. So, and you get to see it actually how the plant grows. When you're actually putting a crop in, whether it's a disc machine going through or a very fine time machine, you feel it in your tractors. And now our late modern tractors give us all the readouts of wheel slip, fuel use efficiency and things like that. You see those greatly. We can drop 5 litres an hour on a tractor on a 1 year treated property just like that in one season. So you see those results all the time.
Yeah. And that's right. You can drive onto a property and feel the compaction straight up, and then the next year you can drive back onto that property and know, you can hear it in the vehicle, you can feel it under your boots. There's a change in that first 12 months of that airspace in that topsoil that you can feel physically with your boots and your vehicle without even needing a penetrometer. So it's pretty instant.
I've got this is a water infiltration tester from David Von Penn. He's the meter man. If you Google the meter man, you can actually buy one of these, and he's got the penetrometers as well. So if you did want to do those measurements, that's who you ask. Too many polite people. I've got a question. I've got a question for Rochelle. Rochelle, you talked about business being different, not doing business as we're doing now, and we're all caught in that model. Could you share with us some ideas that you think how business could look differently?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit similar to how you look at the farm differently. Maybe you're not looking at yield the same, just connecting these. So, I've been learning about, there's a concept called syntropic enterprises, and syntropic is basically like regenerative, the opposite being entropic. And so in part of learning, you're also learning a new way of accounting, so that we don't just put all our value in monetary gain. And that's why I'm saying it's sort of similar to looking at yield. So you look for what are the other benefits that you might, it might be lifestyle or peace of mind, but it might be, family, time, time is valuable. Like, there's no use working 80, 100-hour weeks. Diane will probably go, well, that's a short week. I'm trying to think of a big number here. It's no use working really hard and not having a quality of life. So I suppose, that's one way of considering what you're in business for personally, but also looking at your values helps you work through that as well. So, Justin and I and our car travelers have been considering that, whilst we want to go out there and we all want to go out there and make impact, what just going out and working hard is not enough. We've got to really get down to understanding what it is that is working and what isn't working, and where we can come in. And we think that, we didn't mean it to be 3 C's, but there needs to be more connection, connection with people and helping people connect with land and culture and place, like just connecting, with their own families sometimes. But so connection, we think's important. Collaboration, like this, the collaboration is going to be really the key to, this whole regenerative space growing, and it is already, but even more so, like you said earlier, it's a non-competitive model, which is the usual, business as usual is a competitive model. So collaboration, co-creation, I love that word too, Kelly. What can we do that, honours each other's genius and builds, a better result? It's not 1 + 1 = 2. There's the synergy creates a larger result than it's possible of putting the two parts together, if that makes sense. So, just communication, just good old communication, without finding out. So we're sort of seeing out there that people are getting help along the way. Like we see that there's so much need to help farmers transition, and we've known this for years, and so my mindset hasn't changed in wanting to be part of that, but it's just trying to work out why some people do and some people don't. So so communication to find out again what worked and what didn't work is going to be key to sort of getting to the bottom. So it's I suppose in short, Nakala, it's a bit of a introspective look at how to really make a difference, and you've got to start with yourself, start small, to be able to have the bigger impact that we ultimately want to have.
Thank you, Rochelle. That was just a really lovely way, and we'd love to keep on talking for another hour, but I think we might have to come to an end. But I just wanted to find out, Rochelle, is there any way, maybe we could give a bit of a plug for Nicole's upcoming online events coming up?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the website, Integrity Soil's website is your go-to place. They have a newsletter that you can sign up to as well. She kicked off last year with an online course that, I'll certainly be making sure it doesn't get dusty because it's just the basis to all, like you're saying before, the basis to all people's, starting out. And even if you've gone a long way and you still don't know you feel you lack confidence with, being able to observe things out in the paddock, like the way Ian and I talk is just so amazing, but so many people aren't there yet. So that course I couldn't, sort of say enough is worth doing. And she's got a soil app that she's about to, they're about to launch this month. I think it's 15th of Feb. So that's going to be amazing. And and more courses. She's actually just got the course bug and just realised that there's no limit to how many there's a horse course, there's more advanced courses. She's like, my God, she's prolific, I say. So lots going on in the Integrity Soil space. Thank you.
And Ian and the Haggertys over there, what's happening in your world? How can people contact you over in WA?
Not too sure.
We're generally a bit hard to contact.
Not always in range, unfortunately, most of the time when we're out on the farm. But I just wanted to raise one point, which I think we've probably skimmed over a little bit, is just that role of the animals and, how important they've been in observing them, because the changes are fairly rapid, as we're saying, can be on the farm, and sometimes it takes a microscope, but the animals detect that immediately. And it's their intuitive wisdom that's really been able to show us lots, because unless you're out there doing different sorts of tissue tests and rah-de-rah-de-rah to see what those animals are feeling and experiencing immediately, they, as Walter says, they are a biological assay occurring all the time. And those changes are fairly rapid. So when it's looking at, if you're doing plant assessments or ground cover assessments or fodder assessments going forward, the animals actually know better than what we can actually visualise, because they're actually detecting the changes in the nutrient capacity of those plants. And so there might be an amount of feed out the paddock, but they spend most of the day sleeping because they take 10 mouthfuls now and that fills them for their daily needs, whereas before they might have needed 100 mouthfuls. So those things we can't necessarily assess. We don't need to all the time. As long as we're out there observing the animals and their behaviour, they will tell us a lot of the answers.
One more thing, I know we're wrapping up, but Di, a lot of farmers will be concerned about using a native grass to be productive with their stock. Do you want to talk to us about what your thoughts are on that?
Well, it's just a case of building resilience in a landscape, and perennial plants are critical for us because now that the weather patterns are very random, you might not, as Ian said, we had only 87 mil for the growing season in winter last year, and that was similar the year before. But if you get a bit of summer rain and those perennials can be active, you can actually go pretty close, and we've been achieving it the last couple of years of having some kind of green growth year round. Now, I never thought that would have been possible 5 or 10 years ago probably, but we are starting to achieve that now with the native plants, and they're not just grasses, they're herbs and forbs and all sorts of other plants that are very deep rooted, but also can have some green growth year round. So yeah, it's just a case of building resilience and plants that can function, not necessarily having to be seeded all the time, plants that will restore themselves and be there whatever the climate dishes up, because that's probably one of the overhanging things we have to be aware of is climate change is fairly significant. Australia is copying that, fairly well at the moment, and until we can restore those large water cycles that Walter talks about, we're going to have to deal with that as best we can with the plants that can do that.
I think also that to answer that question, Nakala, is once you get your system right, once you get those core and sensing, whether it be extracts and Nutrisoils and that going along, and you actually get that soil moving along a little bit, what could be classed in the past as a low quality native plant, it actually changes really quickly. And all of a sudden we've had it in Western Australia, plants come up and they say, well, the animals won't eat it, it's totally unpalatable and it's low quality. Well, those plants now are some of our better plants. The animals absolutely just crave for them and do extremely well on them, because what they're looking at is those native plants in an industrial system, and of course they're not functioning properly.
Wonderful. Well, guys, it's been such an amazing conversation. I know as we sort of wrap it up and bring it back to our theme of the year, which is sacred regeneration, I can really see from our dialogues how you could really look, whether you're farming or just in your general life, where you stand in a state of separation from things. So bringing back that word co-creation, and, are you standing in a co-creative mindset with the earth? Are you standing in a co-creative mindset with animals, with the worms, with the soil? Are you standing in a co-creative space with your peers, with new ideas, with intelligence, even with your own spirituality? And I can really see, as we're tying this all together, how sacred regeneration comes down to co-creation. And I have a very tiny hobby farm. I would not consider myself a farmer, but my role is to bring in my co-creative space an artistic process, these sorts of podcasts, and offering to something which is dear to my heart, which is sacred regeneration of our entire worldview, basically, our landscapes, our soils, our food chain, our water chains, our cultural and community. Really say thank you so much for all of you coming on today. You've shared such fantastic stories. Our audiences are going to just get so much out of everything. And Nakala, thank you so much for co-hosting. I'm very excited about this new dynamic partnership we have discovered. I think we can do some fantastic work with some series moving forward. So just wrapping it up, Nakala, do you want to give some contact details again for how people can contact Nutrisoils if they are inspired by everyone's journeys today, and want to get more information about how they can actually sort of co-create with you guys on their farms and on their properties? Do you want to let the audience know how to do that?
Yeah, so give us a call at Nutrisoil. We've got a website, www.nutrisoil.com.au, with all our contact details. I must say, the first time we work with a farmer, it's about, have they connected? Have they had all the access to all of the great education out there? Have they connected with other farmers? That is our role as people that are in the regenerative space, is not to sell our product solely. We can tell people about our product, we don't have to sell it, but we also need people to understand that it's part of a bigger system. So, RCS, holistic management, Marketing, Nicole Masters course book, great books out there, Charles Massey, David Hardwick's doing online things. These are all really important parts of the puzzle to get together when you start with regenerative farming, and we will tell you all about it, so give us a call.
Fantastic. And I'll just plug Carbonate there because one of our big initiatives is our smart boxes, which is a collection of books and DVDs, basically the natural intelligence information, which if you're a farmer interested in transitioning or getting involved in regenerative agriculture, you can register via carbonate.org.au and we send you out a smart box, which gets you on the journey with just the information in your own time. So thank you, everyone. And it's been an amazing podcast today. Such a fun celebration of the National Regenerative Agriculture Day 2021. Against all odds, the COVID, everything's been going on. We have managed to get some amazing guests on and really speak some fantastic ancient wisdom. So thank you very much. And Miss McCosker, we'll say farewell now, I think. Do you want to say any last words?
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, everyone. What an extraordinary podcast, wormcast we've managed to weave. It's been quite amazing, and thank you to everyone. And so really looking forward to the National Regenerative Agriculture Day. Farmers, foodies, artists, musicians, painters, all hijacking Valentine's Day for a beautiful cause. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day.
Have fun.